In this video we'll show how a list control with a detail view is configured so that images are stored in the file system on the mobile device and not in local storage, which then of course allows you to store a lot more data on the mobile device while you're disconnected, and to capture many more images while you're disconnected. So the first thing to notice is that if we go look at the list control here, we'll see that this list is based on a SQL database, and the image field over here that stores the images is a character field, not a binary field. So it's a character field because what gets stored in that field in the database is the URL or the file name of the image and not the binary data itself. So because the image field is a character field, it's necessary for us to go to the Fields tab over here and actually set the control type of that field to image. So basically by default, since it's a character field, it would be a label, just like a description is a label, but we're going to go here and set it to an image. So the next thing is that we've now gone ahead and we've specified that this image character field, which is in the detail view over here, is an image control type. So we went and we set the control type over here to an image, and then we created a button that would actually capture new images. So let's go over to the button here, scroll down to Action JavaScript, and we can see we've used the Action JavaScript image capture for list detail view. And if we go over here, we can see that the image control that we're capturing the image for is this control called image character. And these fields that are shown in sort of grayed out indicate that this particular control, this image character image control, is bound to a field in list 1. It's a character field, and the corresponding field name in the actual table is called image character. And then we specified that we want to use Phonegap as the means of accessing the camera. So the options here are HTML5, Phonegap, and Phonegap Preferred. So Phonegap Preferred means that if we're running in a Phonegap shell, then use Phonegap, otherwise drop back to HTML5. And then you can see that we've also specified that instead of capturing the base 64 encoded data, which is what was previously the only option, we've now specified that when we take a picture, we want to capture the file name of the picture and not the base 64 encoded data. So this is the crucial setting over here that allows us to just capture the file name, which means that very little data for each picture is stored in local storage because we're just storing a file name, and this gives you the ability to capture a large number of images while you're disconnected. So then we can get to our upload target settings, and you can see we can click this and bring up the builder. Now these settings are actually stored in the list control itself, so it's just a convenience that we can get to them from within the Action JavaScript builder. And you can see over here we've specified that we would like to upload the images to S3. The options are either the alpha server or S3, and then when we upload the images to S3, we'd like the file name on S3 to be returned by this JavaScript expression. So you can see here that we're returning images and then /. So that means that all of the images that we are uploading are going to be stored in a subfolder on S3 called images. So if we go over to Cloudberry, we can examine the data that's actually in Amazon S3. So we're using this Cloudberry Explorer to look on S3. We can see that the images here are being stored in a folder called images, and then here is the image name, and the image name follows a pattern over here, and that pattern is prescribed by this JavaScript function over here. So let's pause now and pick this up in the next video. So we're continuing now discussing how the list with detail view was configured to capture images in a Phonegap application, and we're discussing now how in our upload settings we can specify the target file name, which is a JavaScript script that returns the file name that's going to be used to store the image. So one of the key things that we need to do is ensure that that the images that are taken by one user do not override the images that are taken by another user when those images are uploaded to S3, because all users are going to be uploading their images to either S3 or the Alpha Anywhere server. So in order to indicate that the file name is going to be unique, inside our JavaScript we can use these special placeholders and also fields. So device ID is a value that is returned by Phonegap for each device, but unfortunately it is possible that two different devices could use the same device ID. So device ID is not enough to uniquely name the file name. So we also include in the file name on S3 the name of the field in the list control to which this image is bound, and then we also put in a timestamp value, and then finally e.name is the name of the file that the mobile device assigned to the file when the picture was taken. So this is a fairly long file name, as you can see over here. It's ended up being a fairly long file name, but it is guaranteed to be unique, and so images from one user aren't going to override another user. So let's go back now and take a look at some of the other settings over here. So because we chose S3 as our upload target, we need to specify our storage connection string. We could specify that files that are uploaded to S3 are protected, which means that you have to use a signed URL in order to read them. So right now we have not chosen protected. And then you can specify that the images or the media files are that when they're being uploaded, when the user does a sync operation, that you'd like to see progress. So generally speaking, it's a good idea to show progress, because the user might have captured 20 or 30 or more images while they were disconnected, and when the user presses the sync button to synchronize the data, it's going to take a little bit of time until all of those images are uploaded to the remote server. So if you choose to display progress, then you can basically specify what color the progress bar is, how wide it is, and where on the screen it should be shown. So we chose to use this placeholder called placeholder upload. Then the next setting over here lets you specify when the list is initially populated, if any of the rows of data in the list reference linked images. In other words, images where the field in the list data references a file on S3 or an image file on the Alpha server, then you can download those files to the mobile device and store them in a folder on the mobile device. So we've said yes, we want to do that, and we want to basically store them in a folder called underbar AA files. And then this is an important setting over here, which is automatically delete unreferenced files. So if you go and you load a whole bunch of records from the server and then download the associated images, you're going to be putting a number of files into the file system on the mobile device. Then if you go and download a different set of data, some of the files that are in the file system on the mobile device are no longer referenced, or may no longer be referenced, and so you can automatically delete them. And then finally, when files are being downloaded from the server to the mobile device, you can also display progress. So let's pause now and continue in the next video. So we're continuing now with the discussion of how to configure a list control with a detail view to use Phonegap file system for images in a disconnected application. So let's continue now and look at some of the other controls that we have placed on our sample UX that we used to demonstrate the feature. So in order to see what was actually in the list control, we added a button over here called debug show data in list, and we did that by just simply going over here to list control buttons and then we chose this button over here, show data in list, and this is used for debugging only. So this is how we basically selected how we were able to show what data was actually in the list. And then we also added buttons to show what was in the file system. So we have two buttons over here called show files in directory. So if we go ahead over there and click the button, we can see that we used a action from Action JavaScript over there. And so let's go ahead there and say edit, and you can see there we said show us the files in a directory, and then we basically specified the name of the directory. So that's the directory on the mobile device where the files are being stored. And then on success, in other words, once this function has gotten a list of files, we then just called the onSuccess function, and we created a list of all the files and then put them into a div, or actually a pre-control on the component. So there's a control here with an ID called div1, and if we go back to the component here, we can see there's some static text at the end of the control, and we've got here an ID of div1. So that's how we actually were able to list the files that were in the directory, in the directory on the file system. And this is how we were able to delete those files by going to the delete directory action over here, and again choosing Phonegap file system actions, and this time we basically chose the remove directory action, and we removed all the files that were in that directory. So in order to, in summary, in order to configure a list control with a detail view to use the Phonegap file system, allowing you to capture a large number of images while you're disconnected, the key things to remember are: number one, the field in your SQL database that contains the images should be configured as a character field. Number two, when you define your Action JavaScript event to actually capture images, you need to make sure that you use the Phonegap option for the image capture method, and you set the data capture mode to file name. Then you can go over to your list control itself, and you can go to detail view, media and other linked files over here, and you can specify whether you want to upload files to S3 or to the alpha server. So if you choose to upload files to the alpha server, then it's going to be important for each field, for each image field, that you go over to your fields tab over here, where you've turned this from a character, from a label control into an image control, and you specify the upload folder. This will be the folder on the Alpha Anywhere server where you want to basically store the uploaded images. Since we are uploading to Phonegap, we don't need to specify that folder name. So in our case, since we were uploading to S3, it was not important to specify the upload folder. So with those settings, you can see that it's not very complicated to configure the list control to use Phonegap and to use the file system when you're capturing pictures. And then finally, we also specified, let's go back to our list properties over here, we also specified in our media settings over here that we also want to download files from the server and store them on the device inside a folder called underbar AA files. So thank you very much for watching.